Willie D Live.
You said that when you was at your lowest point, you were saying that, man, when I get out of this situation, I'm gonna kill the first person I see. Did you have an image of what that first person you would see would look like? Was that person black? Was that person white? Or was that just a person?
Person, I had no pics.
Okay.
I had no pics. I just want to kill somebody. I had no pics.
Um, who was worse, the CEOs or the inmates?
COs.
Okay. Because when I was locked up, the damn inmates were the worst, which was surprising to me. But that's feds. That's different from Max. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you're in the feds. Feds. A lot of cats, they'll try you because they think it's sweet. They think that you either got a Cadillac situation or you're getting ready to go. And you got your points are low, so they'll try you thinking that you ain't gonna take that chance. And I had to ding ding fries and shake a couple of them suckers, man, uh, before I got up out of there, man, because I don't know what they was thinking, man, but you know,
Right, right. Hey,
yeah, I
yeah.
just
I mean, shit.
yeah, kind of
Killers be
blacked
killed.
out. Right, I kind of blacked out, man. What's your thoughts on this election, man? Well, are
Wait,
you?
so I want to cover something real quick, right? So when I started, before I go into election, right, I want to talk about like the self work I had to do. So this is when I started to shift my mindset, right? And this is when I started developing my mantra: how you think creates how you feel. How you feel becomes an emotion. That emotion becomes a vibration. That vibration becomes a magnet that attracts things to you, right? And then I started, creating my own philosophies and ideologies, right? And one of those things was, what worries you masters you, right? What worries you masters you. So whatever you worry about becomes your master, right? What you worry about, and to worry, you're gonna in order to worry, you have to subconsciously, repetitiously think about the same thing, the same fear, the same bully, the same obstruction, the same roadblock over and over and over and over again. So I had to be aware of, you know, what I worried about started to become my master. So I started to remove worry out of my life and then became more present. And these are the things that, started to help me develop a strong, a strong way of thinking, and help me with my mental fortitude, right? Next thing is being intentional and being purposeful, right? So it's almost like our deeds are the clothes in God's court when we die, and our actions are the lawyers for our soul in that same court, right? So I believe that while we're here, we have to do our best to be righteous. We have to do our best to add value, right? And the value that we add here will be the value added to us in the hereafter when we leave here. So this is why I say the actions are the lawyers for your soul in God's court when you die. So every deed is like testimony. And when we all leave here, we all want Johnny Cochran in God's court in the sky for representing us. Okay, he got OJ off, he gonna get us off. Okay. And then the next thing is, and this is all like the mindset I was cultivating in prison. Once I made that pivot, once I got that inspiration from God, once I got the inspiration from God, this was my pivots, right? Next thing is goals and deadlines. And we have to have goals and deadlines. Set a goal, then put all your energy in reaching that deadline. My first goal for myself was to educate myself, was to get a GED. I got my GED in prison. The furthest my education went was 8th grade, right? So now I'm studying philosophy, Socrates, Machiavelli, Sigmund Freud, John Locke, right? I'm tapping in, right? And I have this goal of increasing my intelligence. I had this goal of increasing my knowledge base. And then I set deadlines. I said, okay, I got 90 days to learn this information, master it, and then apply it to myself, and then learn only the lessons I could learn from the application of the knowledge, which turns into experiences, because experience is the best teacher. Now I created a school filled with teachers created by my experiences that I had from applying the knowledge that I started reading. even being in prison, being limited physically, but I had no limits mentally. So I started meditating. I started writing down affirmations. I started figuring out how to write plans for my future, how to create business plans. So that was important. And then understanding the sacrifices associated with reaching a deadline for the goals that you set. Had to have sacrifices. So even in prison, I stopped messing with the short eyes, which is the pussy magazines. I stopped, going to the yard unless I was working out. I gave up TV. I didn't look at any magazines. I started writing the SBA, which was the Small Business Association, and I found that they had development centers all over the states of America, and I would reach out and correspond with them. Then I got them to send me textbooks, old textbooks from colleges, and I started converting my prison sentence into a college attendance. And then now I'm using this time solely to develop myself. And I removed my focus from the loss of my freedom physically and the privilege I had in terms of exploring my mental freedom. Because I didn't have the worries that I didn't have the worries that I would have had if I was not physically free. So I had to figure out how to look at me being incarcerated as an advantage and leverage that advantage to explore my mind, right? And that's what I was able to do. So then I started to realize that, hey, equality is a contradiction to our existence as Black people. So now I'm studying, right? Like I'm studying um the T. Broader files, Stolen Legacy. I'm studying Egyptology. I'm studying ancient Kemet. I'm realizing that, wait a minute, yo, our people has we have a rich history, and our contributions to the world literally created everything in the world. So now I'm not looking for equality. I'm looking for independence, right? I'm looking for independence because equality is a contradiction to our existence as gods and goddesses here on this planet Earth. I don't need equal rights. I don't I need independence. I need to focus on being independent and indulging in myself, and then building with my God-given capabilities, using the neuromelanin in my brain and applying 100% of my brain to my existence here in this realm. And then when I start doing that, I understand that I'm not looking for equality, because equality is a contradiction to I'm superior. We are a superior race. So we can never be equal to people who are recessive. We're the dominant. We're talking about genetics, right? We're the dominant. They're the recessives. So the problem is we're looking for equality when we will never be equal. We will always be superior. And that superiority gives us a responsibility to be independent. Okay? Very much important, right? Next point. Next point is the mind, and this is mindset, right? The mind never thinks without a picture, right? The mind never thinks without a picture. Now remember my mantra: how you think creates how you feel. How you feel becomes an emotion. That emotion becomes a vibration. That vibration becomes a magnet that attracts things to you. So when you have negative thoughts, I think it's in your best interest to start sketching out these thoughts, these images that you see when you're thinking negative. So you can identify things that may be externally triggering you to think this way. Every time we think, we do not think without a visualization, right? So the mind never thinks without a picture. We need to visualize every positive thought and sketch what you see, and essentially making our own personal art gallery of success in our subconscious mind. And then when you meditate, you're walking through your mind's art gallery, and there's nothing but positive images. Okay? And those positive images are created based upon the sketches you make when you're thinking positive. Okay? We do not think without a picture. When you think negative, there's a picture. When you think positive, there's a picture. So when you start to understand this, you need to develop your ability to sketch what you see when you think how you think. And when you're thinking positive, you need to make these sketches, you know, associated with what you're thinking. Okay. And my next point is, when when you feel afraid, force yourself. When you feel afraid, force yourself to laugh, and then take action through the chuckles. This is another thing that I learned. When you're afraid of something, just start laughing, right? Find something funny, right? And then as you're laughing, move forward out of your comfort zone in spite of fear. This is the mindset that I started to develop once I got the inspiration from God. And this is the mindset that I'm living in to this present moment, right? I got these are my last 2 points on mindset, and then I want to go into government and politics like you was on, right? The next thing is I started to look at things differently. I took a non-traditional I started to take non-traditional approaches. So I'm reading it's a book called Think and Grow Rich, right? Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And they were talking about if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. And they were talking about how to increase your productivity, blah, 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 blah. So somewhere in the book, it said make a to-do list. So what I thought to myself is, I'm going to make a not to-do list. Yeah. And what I did was I wrote down 10 things not to do every single day. And I made sure to not think negative. I made sure to not smoke, not drink, not have certain conversations, not associate myself with certain people, not eat certain foods. I made a not to-do list, and then I checked it off, and then I saw the results at the end of the week. And the funniest thing in the world, at the end of the week of me every single day sticking to my not to-do list, my levels of productivity increased. So, because the to-do list wasn't working for me. So I had to make a not to-do list. And then my not to-do list made my to-do list more easier to achieve and accomplish. Okay. And then
So
yeah.
it seemed like the not to do list was the intangible things, and the to do list was the tangible things, which sometimes we're not able to do anyway because we run out of time, or for whatever reason. Sometimes life happens, and it runs interference.
Right. Because the things on the not to do list, those were the things I was doing to as a form of escapism when I was trying to do something. This is what I found out. So when I was trying to go to the gym, I would get a feeling, and then now I'm going to eat something, play a video game. I would do something to get in the way of what I was supposed to do. So my not to do list revealed all of the vices that I indulged in terms of escapism. So I had to identify, what were the areas of escapism that I would depend on or resort to when I was trying to do something for myself. So the not to do list helped me in that way. So now what it did was it helped me break some of the habits that needed to be broken in order for me to be capable of accomplishing the goals that I set without relying on escapism.
Make a lot of sense. You had a final point?
Yeah. So the final point is, for this sequence is your mindset is everything, right? How you think creates how you feel. How you feel becomes an emotion. That emotion becomes a vibration. That vibration becomes a magnet that attracts things to you. I did everything. All of my healing came from affirmations. All of my healing came from constantly being in the mirror, looking at myself and saying good things to myself, until those good things that I said to myself made me feel good about myself.
How would you react if you suddenly discovered that everything you know might just be a result of your brain trying to protect you from a truth that you can't handle.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, uh, let's say that you know that uh, let's say that you know that God exists. I'm gonna give you a big one. You know that God exists,
For sure.
and your brain tells you that God exists. But what if your brain was telling you that God exists to protect you from a truth that you can't handle? Maybe your brain tells you that God exists because God really don't exist. I'm just I'm not saying that
Well,
I don't
well,
think God exists,
well,
but I'm
well,
saying
well. When you
I'm just giving
dance,
you one of the big.
listen. When you dance with the devil long enough, you start to question, right? We
Hmm.
know you start to question, and I've had those questions, right? I've had those questions like, if does God exist? I've had those questions as a child, right? Because I went through extreme trauma, with my mother. My mother tried to also kill me. She tried to make me overdose on Coursera, right? And I remember coming home from school one time, and my mom's just like, "Yeah, you're sick. You're sick." She grabbed me. Put a her hand to my forehead like she was checking my temperature. She said, "You're sick. You're sick." Oh my God! I'm like, Mommy, I'm not sick. No, you're sick. And she just started making me drink all this Pepto-Bismol, cough serum, etc., right? Until eventually I had like 100 and something degree fever, and then she called my grandmother, and she was like, "You better get this boy. You better get this boy. You better get this boy." And my grandmother came over, and she seen me out of it, laying on my man. Oh man, oh man. Oh man, sorry. That just made me feel. Man, this was a very, very painful experience for me, right? And my grandmother comes in. I'm in the living room, laying on my back. I'm throwing up. I'm hallucinating. I'm going through the works. And my grandmother, she grabs me, picks me up. She calls 911. 911 came and said if they would have been maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, I'll probably be dead, right? And so I've went through so many things that made me question if God was real. But when God showed me that He was real, He didn't show me in some type of a church. He didn't show me in a masjid. He didn't show me in a book. He showed me internally. It's a thing that you can't. It's a thing that you can't explain. It's a thing that is just an instinctive thing that God tailors to you to know that I am real. And
Yeah.
so, and I've had
Yeah.
that experience several occasions. So God has allowed me to see things that are unseen. God has sensitized me in a way to feel things that are not supposed to be felt. So when this has happened, you go, "Oh shit, this is whoa, okay, yeah, this is real. This is real." Like it's not like um, I did a, I did a, I did a podcast, right, with an army veteran, and he was talking about when people die. He's seen so many people die, right? And he was like, everybody that he saw died, they always seemed like they was looking past the person that they was in front of. Like they was seeing something that only death allowed you to see, right? And when he said that to me, I got the chills because I was just like, there were moments in my life that God let me see things that I knew were unseen. And then that was my personal confirmation because the things that he let me see were tailored, right? It was tailored to me, for me to see. And the feelings it made me feel, I said, "Oh, yeah, so, yeah, you real. Yeah, it's real. It's real."